Welcome to two basic business truths that are keeping you from turning your hobby into a business. I'm business coach Wendy Lawson. Today, we are really digging into these two sort of basic business principles and concepts that a lot of people who are trying to turn their hobby into a business struggle with. So want to talk about those today. Thank you for being here with me. Thank you, Replay Warriors, because we have a lot to talk about. So let's dig in. I posted a question on my Facebook page, and let me pop that up real quick. So I posted this question on Facebook. It was kind of a trick question, I'll be honest. So the question was, if Susie earns $100 a week by working 5 hours, could she make $400 a week in 20 hours doing the same thing? Now, there was a lot of great feedback on this, and I want to talk about one of these comments, but it was a bit of a trick question because the key phrase here was doing the same thing. I don't know if you can see, I'm scrolling over there, doing the same thing. It's unlikely that she could quadruple her earnings just because she quadrupled the time invested. And I really loved Rita's comment. I just want to blow that up real quick. She said she could. That is the short answer. But it is also quite possible that she could simply be 4 times as productive, efficient in those same 5 hours and still get $400. Or, this is the big one, or she could stretch the same type of work into 20 hours and still wind up only making $100. So it depends on how she is actually spending her time. Yeah, that's some truth coming out of Rita. So that's really what we're kind of talking about today, is why it's not as simple as just working more hours and you automatically increase your income or your revenue. So let's talk about that. So we're going to talk about two basic business truths today. And the first one we're going to talk about is the law of diminishing returns. And so we're going to talk about some basic business principles, but you know how best you do. I'm going to explain it in ways that make sense to us. The law of diminishing returns is all about it's the point at which the profits, or benefits gained is less than what it cost to produce the product. So you're investing more time or money or energy in creating the product than you're receiving back from the sale of the product. So imagine if you were hungry. It's lunchtime here on the East Coast. Imagine if you were hungry, and so you went to the grocery store and you're all healthy and you bought a bunch of bananas. The bananas are, 87 cents a pound. I don't really know how much bananas are. You get that bunch of bananas. You bring it home. Now you're hungry. So you eat that first banana. That first banana has the greatest benefit, the greatest value to you because you were hungry, right? You received a lot of benefit from that. There was a lot of value relative to the amount that you paid for that banana. Now, let's be honest. If you're like me, the other 3 bananas sit on your counter for a week and then you throw them out because they're all mushy, or you make banana bread, right? You do something else with them, but they don't have the same value. The benefit to you is not as great. You don't value those remaining bananas as much as you did that very first one. Now, I know this sounds like, okay, why are we talking about bananas? I wanted you to understand it in a real life example and what it really looks like in everyday life, okay? Now, you guys know my background is in marketing, and we used this concept in particular with advertising. And so I want to talk about how this applies to our business lives, because in advertising, there's the rule of 7s. Okay. This rule's been around, since like the 30s. I think movie theaters, movie studios created this, but it says that someone needs to see an ad 7 times before they will consider buying it, right? They have to see it. They have to be exposed to it a minimum of 7 times before they'll even consider it. And, honestly, the first 2, 3, 4 times, they might not even realize that they saw it. When we think about today, someone needs a minimum of 7 touch points before they will consider making a purchase. Most people are not out living their life and they've never heard of your product. They've never heard of your service. They don't even know you exist. They see one thing from you and they're like, boop, add to cart, right? That doesn't happen. They want to learn more about your product, more about your business. So it takes a little bit of time. It takes extra impressions. It's not just that first impression. Minimum 7 touch points before they're even considering making a purchase. So 7 touch points And you guys, I'm not just talking about advertising. I want you to really think about this. A touch point could be a post on your Facebook page. It could be something in your email. It could be something on your blog. It could be anywhere where someone is consuming your content. Okay. Or it could be an ad if you run ads, but they need a minimum of 7 touch points. At some point, the frequency will become too much and the customer, the prospect, will tune out. It's too much. I've seen this too many times. I'm uninterested. It's annoying, right? I no longer even see it because it's so repetitive. Do you get those emails from people where they send you 40 bazillion emails in a week and you're like, unsubscribe because it's just too much? That's that tipping point where it's overkill. It's become too much. Now, if we go back to our hobbyist who wants to go pro, she wants to turn this into her business. If she's doing the same exact thing, right? If she's doing exactly what she's always done, but 4 times more frequently, what's going to happen? She's going to hit that tipping point and it's going to become ineffective because you don't want to just send out 4 times as many emails. You don't want to just blog 4 times as much every week. You don't want to just post on your page 4 times more than you were. And when you think about the hobbyist, when you think about someone who has a hobby and she's spending 5 hours a week in her hobby, what is the bulk of her work done? What is she doing during that time? She's nurturing her existing clients and her existing prospects, right? She's not focused on getting outside of her comfort zone and working on lead generation, right? That's where we meet new people, make our pond bigger. She's not focused on that. Maybe a little bit, but she's focused on communicating with the people that already know her. She spends her time on getting those 7 touch points to convert the people who know her into a customer. And so if she's just doing more of that, right, she's not going to grow. She's not going to grow her business. If she's adding 15 hours, if she's quadrupling her time, the majority of that time, those 15 extra hours need to be spent on strategic planning, right? She needs to have a plan. She needs to know what she wants to do. She needs to grow her marketing footprint. She needs to get out of her comfort zone, go do new things, go find new prospects and new customers and grow. That's really what we're looking at with the law of diminishing returns. That's why she can't just do more of the same 4 times as often. Okay. Now, the second thing I want to talk about is economies of scale. Y'all, my college econ professor will be so proud of me right now. So I want to talk about economies of scale. It's a little boring, but I'm going to make it fun for you. Okay. Economies of scale really look at the proportionate savings in cost gained by increasing your level of production. So when you think of a big box retailer like Walmart, the reason they can sell their products so low is because they buy so much that they negotiate lower rates with their wholesalers because they sell so much volume. So when we think about economies of scale within our micro business, which is what if someone wants to take their hobby into a business, they're really looking at building a micro business. The way we can develop that economy of scale is really by systematizing and automating what we can. Now, I said economies of scale are all about having a savings in cost by producing more. And you're like, well, wait a minute, Wendy, that don't make any sense. Okay, I want you to think about this. It's really about bringing your fixed costs down. Okay, your fixed cost. Now, the greatest fixed cost that you have is what it takes you, is your labor, what it takes you to actually work your business, right? And I want you to understand, and y'all get all up in your face, get all up in your grill. That's how best you do. And make sure that you understand that profit is not the same thing as what you pay yourself, okay? What you pay yourself is an expense. Your salary is an expense. Profit is what's left over when you deduct your expenses from your revenue. So what we're talking about here is bringing your labor cost down. Now, it's not just on everything, right? You really want to look at, when we're talking about increasing the production, you want to increase the production on your highest profitability areas of your business. Okay. So you're not making any money on certain parts of your business, but you have to do them. You want to make sure that you are increasing production on the things that actually make money. So think about this. If you are in a direct sales party plan model, if you can have a party with one hostess for the same amount of work, for the same amount of expense of creating the event, running the event, you could duplicate your earnings by having two hostesses instead of one. You no longer have one hostess and you're doing all the work. You have two hostesses in the same time frame. Now you're duplicating your revenue for the same amount of work, right? If you're a coach, if you can coach one person, you can save costs, the cost being your time, through group coaching. If you're talking to one person, talk to 10 people at the same time. Teach them all the same thing at the same time. Cha-ching, cha-ching. So that's where we start looking at economies of scale. The thing is really automating or systematizing your customer touch points, right? Remember that it costs you more to get a new customer than it does to turn a one-time customer into a repeat customer, right? It costs you far more money. Even if you're not paying for it, your time, what you're doing, it's going to take you longer. Your time is valuable to get a new customer than it is to flip a one-time customer into a repeat customer. So, think about that as you're thinking about, well, how do I systemize a little bit, or how do I automate some of this to lower my expenses through increasing my production? So if you're making sure that you have a good follow-up protocol, put on your manufacturing hat for a second and imagine that you're doing your work, whatever it is, that you're doing it on an assembly line. My mom worked in automotive manufacturing. The plant that she worked at, they made mufflers and one other piece. That's all they did. They didn't put together one individual car. They didn't go over here and make a muffler and then go over here and make a steering wheel. Right? They had an assembly line. They would make all of one piece and then that would get shipped somewhere and someone else made all of one other piece. And then, the assembly line would come in and they would boop, 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 put it together. So that's so much more efficient than trying to create something from start to finish. When you think about the work that you're doing in your business, I know you don't have an assembly line. Although if you make a product, if you make a finished product that you're selling, then really maybe you do need an assembly line where you're making all of piece one at one time and all of piece two and all of piece three. But if you're not making a finished product like that, this is where thinking about something like batching your work becomes a way to increase your production and lowering your expenses, because you guys know if it takes you 5 minutes to create one graphic, you can make 10 graphics in 30 minutes, right? It doesn't take as long. That first one always takes longer. Or if you are making cookies, you're not going to preheat the oven and you're not going to get all the ingredients out and trash your kitchen. Maybe that's just me. To make one cookie, you're going to make a whole batch, a whole sheet of cookies, because the work that it takes to make that first one, all that prep time and all that mess, you might as well duplicate that effort, right? While you're still there. We think about then taking that assembly line with tasks that we can batch, that we can do a lot of at the same time. Now, the only way this works, hear me on this, is if you have a strategy and a plan. If you don't know what you're going to be talking about for the next 2 weeks, you can't sit down and batch graphics. You can't sit down and write blog posts. You can't sit down and do the thing if you don't have a plan. So when we think about all this, right? When we think about all this, this is why the hobbyist struggles to flip that switch and become sort of a business owner, because her focus is very different. And you would think, in a lot of ways, this seems like opposite day. You would think, because in theory, okay, a hobbyist, you'd think she'd be super efficient with her time because she's only has 5 hours a week, right? She doesn't have a lot of time. So you would assume that she must be super efficient and she's on top of her game because bing, 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 bing. But it's actually the exact opposite, because it's a hobby. It's not a business, right? She's not concerned with strategy. She's not treating this like it's a business. And honestly, when you tiptoe into any enterprise as a hobby, it's hard to flip the switch, because you guys, how you spend your time, truly, it's habitual, right? It's habitual. What we do for our businesses when they're hobbies, it's habitual. we like sit down and we do this one thing because it's fun. And then we go do this thing because it's fun. And then y'all know we scroll on Facebook, or we go over to Pinterest, we do all the things, but most of it is habit. It's out of habit. And so when you switch from I'm a hobbyist to I'm a business owner, there's some internal shifts that have to happen as well. So I do have tonight, I am going in depth on sort of the 4 essential areas or elements that you need to address if you want to flip that switch from hobbyist to business owner. I'm covering that tonight. It's a free webinar. You can register at wendylawson.com/hobby. And we're going to go through these 4 areas that you really need to address. It'll be about 35 minutes or so. It'll be fun. So we'll leave that up there, wendylawson.com/hobby. Here's what I want to leave you with, okay? This is what I really want you to think about. As you go back, I know I've given you some like boring sounding business concepts today with law of diminishing returns and economies of scale, but I really want you to go back to your enterprise, whether you consider it a hobby or a business. And I want you to evaluate it. And I want you to be honest with yourself and really look, are you paying attention to the law of diminishing returns, particularly in your marketing? Do you keep talking, and no one's responding? If no one's responding, it could be an issue with law of diminishing returns. They've heard the same message so many times that they're tuning it out. And then secondly, really look at your processes and look at the things that you're doing in your business and see, am I developing? Am I creating economies of scale so that I can really save my time, increase production, but save on my expenses, which is my time, right? Because you need to be paying yourself some more money. So you guys, that is it. Those are your 2 basic business principles that we are covering today. Hey, listen, I hope you have a great rest of your Thursday. You know, I love you madly. Guys, I'll see you later. Bye.